Here I am again. Are we just doing this? Yes. The only thing I'm doing back up here is to tell you Jake's coming up. So Jake is he's a board member. He's been involved from the beginning. And he is a business architect here at Thrivent. And you can read about him here. But he's going to talk with us today about the persona of the business architect. And we're really happy to have him doing that. Thank you very much. Let's welcome Jake.
Thanks, Linda. So first, I just want a little disclosure. I've been battling a little bit of a spring bug here, so I have, my cough drop in my mouth, and I'm breaking the rules by having water up here too. So shh, don't tell anyone. But I haven't been able to make it through meetings talking more than 10 minutes at a time without having coughing fits. So I encourage questions along the way and additional commentary. So the persona of a business architect, this was something that I've had some interesting conversations with individuals throughout my career as a business architect. So before we actually dive into the topic, I just want to give you a little brief history of my career, how I ended up in the business architecture area. So my previous career, I started in hospitality management. It was very much kind of day-to-day operations, very much a service organization, different than financial services, what I work in now from Thrivent Financial. I left that industry and attended business school full-time in 2006. I got my MBA in 2008 from the University of Minnesota. Some of the classes I emphasized in I think it was either brand management or marketing was the official term, but I had kind of taken some additional classes in strategy and general management. And my first experience here at Thrivent was actually as an intern in between my 2 years at business school. And I was working in annuity product marketing, which had a little bit of marketing, had a little bit of kind of general management experience, but it was my first foray into financial services products. So I was a complete noob when it came to financial services, and really that kind of it was kind of a sink or swim opportunity to kind of learn a lot about Thrivent. But from learning about Thrivent's culture, that's why I decided I really wanted to join Thrivent. And I joined Thrivent full time in 2008. As an internal consultant, doing, for the most part, we were like kind of project leads for hire or strategists for areas or initiative leads. We did a variety of different types of consulting, whether it was mostly kind of project-based work, a couple projects at a time. And sometime, I think it was 2009, 2010 was when I had a chance to first meet Tom Murtis, who is now my boss. And we worked on some of the organizational strategic planning, creation of the strategic planning process. At the time, we were looking at organizing it around the OGSM framework, which we were trying to create a more formalized process here at Thrivent. And that experience kind of, that was my first heavy experience into strategic planning, and actually got me interested into what the opportunity was around business architecture here at Thrivent. I think at one point in 2011, I'd seen a posting, read the posting, and it was kind of intriguing and interesting to me. But there was a couple things in that posting that I was like, what does TOGAF certification mean? I'm not even familiar with that term, and I hadn't heard the term business architect previously as well. But after reaching out and having some discussions, individual discussions with Tom, it sounded like it was something that I was very interested in, and that was my first foray into business architecture. And I would say, since then, since I took the role as a business architect in 2011. I consider myself a business architect, and it's been a passion of mine since then. So in that roughly 4 years that I've been a practicing business architect, I give you a little bit of clue as to what my kind of observational history it has been as a business architect. So 4 years running, I've attended the Business Architecture Innovation Summit. I think it's gone by a couple of different terms over the last 4 years, but sponsored by the Business Architecture Guild. Kind of a lot of focus and center around the BizBOC, the Business Architecture Body of Knowledge. And there's a lot of kind of community discussion similar to what I'd say is what we have here at the TCBAF for individuals and organizations to talk a lot about business architecture. And there is occasionally some time to network and have conversations, side conversations. And so, one of the natural topics that seems to come up is, tell me about, your experiences as a business architect, or is a company or an organization looking to get into business architecture? What are the traits of that individual that they're looking to hire, or the traits that they want to bring into their organization? So naturally, discussions like that will come up at this Business Architecture Innovation Summit. Community meetings like this one, I really like the TCBAF, obviously with my involvement at the board level as of recent. I've been coming to these meetings pretty much since I became a business architect in 2011. I also included the MAC conference as one of the local community things on there as well. There's a couple others that have either business architecture as topics, a couple that I've spoke at myself, but they kind of float around in the community as well. So networking opportunities at those places create great opportunities to talk about, who are the people that are business architects, what are the traits that organizations are looking for. And then additionally, here at Thrivent, since I've been in the business architecture area, we've gone through a couple of periods of hiring folks. And it ranged from directly involved to the hiring process to kind of partially involved with philosophical conversations about the persona of the individuals that we want to bring into the organization for a business architecture role. So we internally at Thrivent have had some conversations in this space as well. And what I didn't include on this slide, additionally, conversations with other consultancies we've worked with. Even just this last year, we've worked with a couple of different consultancies in the business architecture space, in the kind of strategy to execution space, and talk at least loosely, who are the individuals doing capability-based planning, what are they like? Topics like that commonly come up. So I want to give you a little bit of preview into, I want to kind of investigate the persona of a business architect, but it's going to be kind of across a couple of different traits or criteria. But I want to give you a preview as to the conclusion, the observational conclusion that I've come to, which is there kind of a single sole persona of a business architect that makes, or an individual that makes a successful business architect? And at least the answer or the thesis that I've came up with is no, there's not one individual sole persona, but a variety of different personas that seem to make successful business architects. And forgive my use of internet picture memes here, but as a couple of things that just popped in mind. We've got Grumpy Cat up there and philosophical Keanu Reeves, and I've been using a lot of bear memes on things lately just because it's on top of mind because I'm going to the Boundary Waters and camping in a couple of weeks here. So it's a little quirky Jake humor. So the criteria we're going to look into across a couple of these dimensions here, experience and background, kind of like what jobs do business architects do they previously hold? What is their experience? What is their background? What is their career path leading into business architecture? Discipline, experience, and training. So At least I like to talk about or think about business architecture as a discipline in itself. But, what are some of the other disciplines that are related to business architecture, or it helps to have experience in those disciplines to be a successful business architect? Some minor observations around educational background, touch on that briefly. And then I think what a lot of people like to discuss and talk about, and this actually becomes kind of real sticking points and interesting conversations around job postings and observing job postings, and when it comes to hiring business architects, some of the hard skills and the soft skills that make successful business architects as well. So first, we will dive into some of the work experience background observations, and this is again going back to this is Jake's observations from his 4 years as a business architect. It's not necessarily a scientific study, if you will. I'd love to come to you guys with surveys and statistics about the business architects and some of their work experience backgrounds, but this is more of an observational study. I created a couple of arbitrary buckets. There's probably more, and I think this is where we could have some interesting community discussion as well. But the business analyst space, some of the interesting pros on people have talked about as far as bringing in a business analyst is around the ability to kind of understand process and technology specific to a business area. Definitely a analytical thinker, a logical thinker is one of the positives for bringing in business analysts. And in fact, one of the, I think in the BizBach business, or at least in conversations at the guild level, one of the career paths identified for a business architect is an opportunity for a business analyst to move into that role as a business architect as well. So tech and information and enterprise architects as well. Some of these people tend to be very logical, analytical thinkers, again, coming to the table with that trait, having context and ability to talk about process, talk about deep knowledge in technology, to have good context along those traits as well. And then generally just an understanding of architectural concepts as well. So some people that are either looking to build, organizations that are looking to build or bring in business architects, or have brought in, a lot of times people might have this type of background as well. One of the things that, and this is a little bit more of my background too in the consultancy space. I think it is even part of some of the conversations at the Metro State Business Architecture class as well, is just kind of having a consultancy background. And you can think of consultancy as the ability to have a consulting type of trait as well as a background as a individual, as a consultant working in a consultancy. But again, these individuals, they bring to the table a lot of analytical, logical thinking, kind of the ability to facilitate groups, and/or the ability to command a room is one of the reasons why individuals might bring in or look for individuals that have a consultancy background or the ability to do consulting. And then thinking about just contextually, consultants are very familiar with bringing in a variety of different frameworks, and going back to at least my thinking of how business architecture is used as a discipline. I like to think of business architecture, I have a bunch of tools in my toolbox that I get to use, a bunch of different frameworks. And consultants are often thinking of a lot of different frameworks in that same context. So, bringing in capability-based planning, mapping, heat mapping, value stream mapping is just additional tool sets that a consultant can bring into their back pocket and be successful business architects that way. So, you know, another kind of background for individuals is just to have a business line subject matter expert background as well. A lot of organizations have had success kind of pulling in or tapping individuals throughout their organizations that have either a good breadth of knowledge around their business area or a great depth of knowledge in a business area. And being able to tap those individuals and kind of teach them some of the concepts of business architecture, capability-based planning, some of the frameworks and some of the disciplines used in business architecture can result in a business architect that's very successful because they can use those frameworks in the knowledge or in using the knowledge, the depth of knowledge that or breadth of knowledge that they have in a business area. So this last one, I called it out individually. It seems pretty specific. It probably could fit in the business line subject matter expert area, but I called it out individually because it came up in a lot of different conversations multiple times, more than I might have expected. But you know, I've heard organizations and individuals when asked, you know, who make the best business architects. I've actually heard the term several times said. Industrial engineers. Industrial engineers make great business architects, and some of the reasons why, you know, being able to bring a technical or operational knowledge to their role, and then generally some of the traits of those individuals that are coming from that background might be analytical and logical as well. And one of the biggest reasons is that if working with other industrial engineers in some cases, there's a good ability to relate to those individuals that are in that field. So, you know, ability to kind of speak the same language is a big plus. So before I move on, have I missed any? Does anyone have any observations over occupations, Linda?
I think that these are all accurate, and we actually throw the net overall of these same feeder roles in all, and like you refer to them at your state class and stuff. We talk about all these. The other one though that I think is perhaps missing is an organizational development background.
Sure, organizational development.
Because there's a great deal of change management and organizational design,
Yeah.
operational design.
Yeah, leveraging some of the same disciplines that business architecture uses, certainly.
I have a question for you. I am wondering, why do you think an enterprise architect, or an information architect for that matter, would want to be a business architect?
I've actually met some that actually want to. There's one right there. And I guess that might be a personal choice for an individual in one of those roles. I've met people that want to have a foray in business architecture. I think the context of what types of roles make successful business architects, if you think of just having context on architectural principles to begin with, is it can put you at a great advantage moving into a business architecture role. I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess maybe not, because that's an individual preference, right? Sure. So my experience might be a little different than others, and this is, you know, me coming from my background. I came into business architecture kind of with a consulting background. So when I'm selling business architecture, I'm selling the value add of the discipline itself first. And, you know, assuming that they're on board with doing capability-based planning to align capabilities with strategies and prioritize capability maturity improvements. What I find at the end of the day is a lot of them are more than happy with the fact that I came to the table with a consultancy background, kind of the ability to facilitate, bring groups of people together, and come to kind of a common framework, common language that they might not have otherwise been able to come to.
There's probably a hierarchy of skills, all that, I'll add on to Jake's discussion. You kind of got to have the consultant skills, but he'll also speak to our team is working pretty hard. I've talked to him about trying to build stronger business acumen, especially in emerging disciplines. And so we're being very intentional about planning some of that versus waiting for a customer to contact us. We can better speak their language, we can bring value add faster.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's the consultant and business analyst need to combine that type of skills.
Yeah, and riffing off of that as well, the the ability of having a consulting background, having a potentially a breadth and depth in business acumen. I probably came to the group with more of a breadth and not as much a depth in certain business areas. But even just having a breadth and knowledge in some of our business areas has definitely helped open the door to opportunities to sell capability-based planning throughout our organization.
What would be the main differentiator between business analyst and business architect? Both from your personal experience or from the deployment you have in business? Do you have that pushes this? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So differentiated between business analyst and business architect. I think that in some people this may be very similar terms, business architect and business analyst. If you take the kind of traditionalist approach to, what is the business analyst body of knowledge book versus the practice of business architecture, the business architecture body of knowledge, I think disciplines are similar, but you can kind of point out some specifics that a business analyst might get into that a business architect, at least from my experience, maybe doesn't get into that level of detail. I think a lot of business analysts will sometimes understand and get to the point of understanding requirements for initiatives, where at least, depending on the business architecture practice, some business architects also play in that space. And I think, to your point, that they can be very similar practices and or be one and the same. And it depends on an organization's approach to how they want to operate a business analyst practice or a business architecture practice.
So where do you, this conversation comes up quite a bit. How do you have the business architecture practice slotted in your organization? Is it part of BA? Is it part of strategy?
Where is business architecture in our organization? So at Thrivent, when I started in the group in 2011, that was one of the biggest kind of eyebrow raisers for me. Reading the job description, it was very much kind of a planning type of role, with the exception of, I mentioned earlier, like conversations about TOGAF and some other things, but it was housed in IT. And we had a group that was very much focused on kind of relationship management between different business areas and IT. And we did capability-based planning with the idea that one of the outcomes was to understand a little bit better opportunities for technology improvements, ways to mature technology in the context of a capability. I think we, as a practice at Thrivent, have matured over these years. We are 2 years into now moving out of IT. We are actually in a shared services and administrative organization, which I think is helpful to be able to work across the organization. We still hold those IT partnerships that we previously had when we were in IT. Working with various IT partners, those relationships still exist, but I think being able to come to a business area and say, hey, we're here to help you with some planning. It's a lot easier to say we are a shared service than we're coming from the context of IT.
One more follow-up.
Sure.
How many people do you have doing the business architect role? Because
Yeah. Yeah, it probably is, and over I'll get into some of the other criteria, but we should probably be, each group should be well-rounded in multiple aspects of these criteria. We have 3 practitioners right now. We've varied from 4 to 2 practitioners since I've been in the organization. We are trying to evolve into having a little bit more of a federated model here at Thrivent, where we have kind of centralized business architect practitioners and having the ability to kind of tap individuals in different business areas that might have a great depth of knowledge in their business line to be able to say, hey, you're familiar with some of these business architecture artifacts, the concepts of capability-based planning, and are advocates of it. We've worked with you in the past, and you have a great knowledge of your business area. Would you be interested in spending, hypothetically, 10% of your time on working on capability development within your business area on a regular basis? So we're kind of exploring that opportunity right now. One of the things that's potentially on our horizon for this year.
If others are willing to share, I'd be interested in where they're at in their organizational journeys, if they have clearly defined business architect roles and where they house it, how maybe they can help.
Yeah, anyone want to share?
Mine doesn't, that's right.
I know Target has business architects, right? I think that, I mean, what Jake just described is what we all kind of are supposed to know what to do a little bit, and that is understand business architecture as both a capability and also an organizational function. So if you have an organizational function, business architect unit, or org chart picture, or business architect, so that's one thing. But the practice of business architecture is all over the place. And the things that we do to support the process of business architecture is typically all over the place in organizations. And so then that's where our ability to abstract out to thinking about things in terms of capabilities instead of necessarily organizational boxes helps us a lot. Because using some of these tools, the model canvas, the operations, operational models, the org mapping, strategy mapping, a lot of things called in BizBot. Those things are, it's a matter of when Jake says they're looking at federated opportunities and where there are people sitting other places in the organization, because they're already doing this stuff. Because it needs to be done in organizations, whether you call it business architecture or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think we've had a variety of discussions even at these sessions before, depending on the organizations that are present. But you can have a business architecture practice by function or name or organization, or you can have a business architecture practice just by what you're doing. Like you could practice some of the discipline of business architecture without being called a business architect. And a lot of organizations seem to be all across that spectrum.
And part of that is because we're an evolving
Discipline, yeah.
And to add to that, if Blue Cross answers your question, we have, I would say, 5 of us that practice components of business architecture, but I don't use our which I go across, say, oh, these all these things. We look for the opportunity, what's the business doing that, what's the opportunity or problem that needs to be solved, and then we look and say, what's the best technique to solve that, which is the values of the business. So that's our goal, right? It's always ask the question, what is this providing? And we do some of that. Our groups don't
But this is one of the problems that I have seen, not just in this organization, but in other organizations, as to where there is a gap in between the two practices. And hopefully, as it matures, both as a body of knowledge and as a practice in the particular organization, that meeting of the mind could happen.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. We'll maybe move on here to the next criteria I have for discussion. So getting into kind of discipline experience of individuals that make successful business architects. The top two here that I listed: business process management, continuous improvement, or Six Sigma. More and more it seems to be a hot topic at the Business Architecture Guild level or BizBoc conversations around merging or talking about the congruency of capability mapping and value stream mapping and or process mapping to capability mapping. So this seems to be kind of a hot topic right now around the congruence of some of these additional kind of process-esque disciplines to business architecture. And so a lot of people organizations are seeking individuals that have some type of background in this discipline, or potentially might be trained, or at minimum can be dangerous enough to kind of speak the language. So it just, really, at least at my observation, seems to be the hot topic right now at the Guild and BizBoc level. I've had conversations, heard people talk about project managers as a discipline working into business, being successful business architects. I think the context or the concept is individuals that have kind of great organizers and individuals that can bring people together, and having some of those skills that are associated with some components of project management have helped make individuals some successful business architects as well. Tying to the business analyst as a profession leading to potential business architecture as a profession, similarly the certified business analyst professional, individuals aren't, I don't think I've seen any postings or organizations that necessarily require or suggest this as a discipline, but finding that it seems to be a natural career progression from business analyst to business architect. This is probably a semi-related discipline worth calling out. I mentioned earlier TOGAF, Open Group Standard. This, I think there's, maybe I haven't looked in the recent version, but 1 or 2 pages specific to business architecture in TOGAF. But having knowledge around kind of some of the standards within TOGAF, I think has made individuals successful business architects as well. I included this last one on here and italicized it because I think this is not necessarily something I think that organizations or individuals are seeking yet. I know it's helping some existing business architects or individuals that want to be business architects learn more about the discipline, some of the tools in the toolbox. There's all sorts of educational opportunities that are popping up. This is my infomercial shout out to the Metro State program around business architecture right now. The Guild, I think, is in beta or alpha testing around an official certification on business architecture that's associated with the BizBoc, and I think it sounds like their plans are to at least associate that certification to potential other educational organizations that are teaching around business architecture. I've even heard, I think we've had some fellow St. Thomas MBA, Carlson School MBA folks attend these sessions, and I've heard them talk about they either had a course or a piece of a course in their MBA program that was focusing or talking about business architecture and capability-based planning. So, it seems like there is some discipline, experience, and training around specifically the topic of business architecture that I have a feeling as some of our organizations are starting to grow or mature their practices, this will be one of the things that they're looking for as well. Any additions, other observations people might have?
Excuse me, one that I just came across recently that I'm kind of interested in watching, it seems to be kind of new, is the open group, the same one that has the TOGAF. The TOGAF certification is kind of easy, not easy to get, but it's basically you take the test, you study for it and take the test. But they also have this certified architect program or certification.
Mm-hmm.
And they just recently approved this business architecture stream for their certified architecture. It had to be kind of a technical enterprise, but they're recognizing the emergence of business
Yep.
architecture. So they got this specific, they call it a stream, the BA, the business architecture stream. So that might be and that has a pretty high barrier. They have different levels, and it's like to get to a good level, you gotta like go out and interview, you gotta, it's a high standard to get. So I
Sure.
think, it should be kind of, I think there's looking to be kind of a prestigious thing. So just
Another emerging thing that's probably coming down the pipeline that employers may be looking for. Linda?
Business Architecture Institute is also talking about doing a certification
Mm-hmm.
that'll be present alongside the others.
Yeah.
There's more practical, not as much specifically to the BizBot. And then the Object Management Group is where the BASIC lives, which is
Yep.
who is actually BASIC being Business Architecture Special Interest Group, and they are actually the ones that are partnering with PO to create and administer the certification.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, and I feel like, at least observationally, there seems to be a lot more convergence of these certifications around business architecture over the last year or 2 years than ever before, and I think there's going to just continue to be convergence around this space, would be my guess, but this will be kind of a wait and see thing for me, I think. All right, we'll move on to the next criteria set. I didn't have much to talk about here, and this was, just some minor observations. I don't think I've met or noticed or heard of anyone that's moved into a business architecture role that hasn't had a 4-year degree. I might be wrong on this. It seems like a lot of people that I've met are either looking for or have that are in this role some type of technology slant, and I don't know if that's in formal education or just knowledge enough to be dangerous, but it seems like being able to at least be knowledgeable on the technology spectrum seems to be having that educational background helpful. I've seen some postings not necessarily call out an MBA, but to talk about advanced degrees preferred. It seems like at least a lot of individuals that are in this role, they might have an organizational management master's or something of the sort, or some type of technology or engineering master's as well. But at least it seems to be that advanced education seems to be important to this discipline. Anyone have any other observations about educational experience? And this kind of goes hand in hand with some of the, the experiences in disciplines, but 'cause some of these can be done through classwork and certification as well. So they can potentially be talked about hand in hand.
I will add that we are, at least I'm being approached to talk to a couple of different institutions about integrating, St. Thomas is the first one, but integrating business architecture learning into MBA programs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know if, how long it'll be before there's a business architecture emphasis, but it is starting to shake out that people are, someone's on the MBA side. It's not on the, I don't know if it's, I haven't ever talked to anyone about that on the
Yeah.
business side.
Yeah, and at least organically, that seems to be the way some of these MBA programs are headed, right? They almost can't talk about some of the curriculum without mentioning or talking about capability-based planning related to strategic planning. Yep. Yep.
Something related to that was I did my master's in economics in software, and so I have exposure to enterprise architecture and software architecture and that sort of thing. So that next sounds would fit would be business architecture.
Yeah, great. So the last topic, the last criteria set, I think this seems to be the common one I think a lot of people are interested in, like to talk about, and this kind of relates to job postings and requirements for some of the opportunities that might be in the business architecture space, if it is a business architect by role as well as function. Sometimes when you're talking about business architect as a function rather than a role, someone that might be a part-time business architect, these might be skills that you'd want to look for when talking or trying to set up a business architecture practice. On the hard skills side, the ability to use frameworks or a larger tool set. We talked a little bit about that in the context of having a consultancy background. So this next one, Microsoft Suite expert. Kind of interestingly enough, it sounds like there's a variety of different tool sets that different organizations use around business architecture or enterprise architecture, but ultimately, if you're using a tool, not every tool set is perfectly designed for presentation mode or anything of the sort, but the ability to present using kind of the Microsoft Suite, whether it's visual presentation or Excel use to capture information that might be plugged into an enterprise or business architecture tool, seems to be a very, very important skill. Design thinking, I can't remember if it might have been last year at the Business Architecture Innovation Summit, that one of the speakers was, he considered himself a designer. He certainly seemed to be either an enterprise architect or business architect by trade, but he called himself straight out a designer. And he very much talked about kind of innovation and development in the context of design thinking. So hard skills around formal training or understanding of design thinking at least seems to be valuable in some uses of business architecture as well. I've heard a lot of people talking about just the fact that information is a large component of capability-based planning. Business intelligence being a hard skill, having context on information management, information analytics, being able to take business intelligence or business information and change them into, analyze them, understand, and create business intelligence out of that information seems to be a skill that is valued by employers and the individuals that are practicing business architecture. This next one I call out because I don't know that I've actually ever heard anyone call out, I want a salesperson as a business architect, or an organization that says, I need someone in sales. But one of the biggest deficits that I always hear organizations talk about is we need to sell our business architecture practice. We need to sell to our executives what the value of having business architecture, doing capability-based planning is at our organization, and to have people that are practicing the discipline and can, it's not a hard sell that I'm talking about, but the ability to, talk about capability-based planning and the discipline around it and the value that it can provide to the organization and having some passion around it, I think is really valuable for individuals that are practicing in business architecture. These last three, you could probably call them hard skills. They might be soft skills as well, but facilitation experience we talked about in the context of kind of consulting background, presentation experience as well, analytical skills or logical thinking. Over in the soft skills section, strategic thinking, you might think of that as a competency, the ability to think strategically or consider multiple things, multiple variables in the context of strategy, and or to understand strategy and dissect it so you can understand capability prioritization in the context of the work you're doing seems to be a very important competency. Ability to influence without authority. At least the way the business architecture practice at Thrivent works, you know, we're a centralized group. When we're working with different business areas, there's no element of authority when we're coming in and working with. It's more of a partnership. And you know, one of the things that I feel when I come into an engagement is, yeah, I probably have an idea on how we can approach doing some of our capability-based planning, and I might have and want the opportunity to influence how we go about doing that, but I'm by no means going to dictate it. And it's kind of a subtle line between influence without authority and pseudo authority or imposing authority. Ability to be comfortable with ambiguity. I think this works on several levels just for the context of you know, working with different business units, business areas. You might have, if you're trying to sell business architecture, and working with different business areas that you're trying to explain and communicate the value of business architecture to them. It might be, you know, it might be a soft sell. You might have to have multiple conversations with a business area or a business line to be interested or wanting to pursue business architecture, and you know, having that ambiguity of knowing, you know, I might not ever be working with this business area, but they're selling business architecture, or at least trying to communicate the value of it seems to be very important as well. I've talked to a lot of different individuals, a lot of different organizations that have talked about kind of charisma or executive presence or the ability to command a room, the ability to work with executives and feel comfortable in that setting as to be a very important soft skill to actually bring to the table as kind of a consultancy approach, whether, you know, comfortability with middle management or C-suite executives. To be clear with verbal communication, written communication, I'll probably also add here visual communication. You know, business architecture feels like we're always dealing with, you know, a variety of different frameworks in our discipline, and to kind of visually communicate them in a concise manner, it seems to be very important. In fact, you know, I know organizations that have used working interviews to you know, create a PowerPoint presentation, present this material so we can understand how you communicate visually as well. Excellent listening skills. This seems to be one of the ones that I would say doesn't seem to come out in conversation, but it comes out, at least in my experience, on the backside of engagements, business architecture engagements. The kind of the ability to really listen with your business partners, to understand what it is they're talking about, and to kind of repeat back to them what it is you hear. At least I found business partners find that to be very valuable. Resilience kind of goes hand in hand with the ability to deal with ambiguity, and then we talked a little bit about consultative as well. Any other?
One of the soft skills I noticed is the ability to lead or manage change.
Yes.
I think it's really important to have that experience, or at least have the toolkit
Yep.
for stakeholder assessments and getting through change management.
Absolutely. Ability to lead and manage change, and that relates to what you mentioned earlier, Linda.
I think another important part is the art of really insightful questioning.
Sure.
That's a critical skill.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of a lead-in to listening, right? You can't listen without having insightful questioning. Yeah. Sure.
right down to the individuals in terms of what influences them or can't support until done.
Yep. Yeah. Organizational awareness, if you will. Yep.
What I would say is modeling. And I thought of it when you said Microsoft Suite, because if you include the Visio as part of it,
Yep.
I mean, you should be able to, as you get information, be able to open Visio and develop the right kind of model. And not just making it up, which 9 times out of 10, the people will just, pull in some squares, some rectangles, some arrows, some swim lanes.
Yeah.
And they're communicating something, but there are best practice, is this a data diagram? Is it an
Yeah.
organizational diagram? Is it a process diagram? And there's the right ways of doing it.
Yeah.
And we should be experts at doing that
Yeah.
and applying that.
Yeah, and that kind of relates to the previous conversation around the criteria around discipline experience, right? To have knowledge in using different disciplines, you'll have access to a toolbox that can help with framework development. Any other soft skills, hard skills that?
I think you talked about it a little bit, but or you hint to it, but there's a strong EQ.
Sure.
Is a really important part to be able to do all of that.
Yeah, not only IQ but EQ, right?
Yeah, you need to really win over. I was come up with the word empathetic, which is kind of a squishy word, but your client, the people you're talking with, they got to, you're part of psychiatry. You got to get them to have confidence in you and really open up to you. So if you have that EQ, you're able to do that. If you come across stiff, formal, that's going to really inhibit your ability to do the elicitation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I made it through my presentation without having any coughing fits, which I actually would thank all of you because you gave me a little bit of time to respite in between my my conversation here. Any other broader topics, questions, conversations you guys want to have around the persona of a business architect?
Jake, I work with Jake. One thing, if you go back to the goals slide, there was a lot of logical going across each of the buckets, and I would like to challenge the group around the right brain thinker, and they work with patterns and talking about modeling, being
Yep.
able to be abstract, but also being able to take something and decompose and bring it down to more of a logical level. But that's just something that I'm a right brain thinker, so I didn't quite see that come out
Sure, sure.
on that. So, and also musicians. I worked with a couple professional musicians, and they were architects.
Sure.
They were enterprise business architects and information architects, and they were fantastic at what they did, just because they could understand models and patterns.
Yeah, interesting observation. Any other broader questions or conversation?
Good job, good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, thank you.
I think this will be a good one. We'll get, I know that you may need, I don't know if you need to do anything to it before we post it.
Yeah.
But we always post these,
Turn it
it'll
to
be,
PDF maybe.
okay, we always post these on the website. So, but this will be a good ongoing discussion because there were a number of things in here that I'm going to be following up with Jake on. And so, because this is a really open dialogue right now. There's a lot of people thinking and talking about this. But that was great. Thank you very much. Before we close, and we have like 1 minute left, but I want to give Chandler an opportunity to talk about something he's got going on in August. And so if you want to just give us 1 minute, Chandler, it would be helpful for everyone to know about it. Something that could link up. Oh, you were expecting this right now. You're just speaking of the microphone, sir.
Thank you. For those that don't know me, I'm Chandler Kayott. I'm one of the founding partners of a firm here in town called Kayott. And I've been working a lot with business architects and the community over the last year or so and really enjoying the work there. But we also do a lot of work with clients that are trying to figure out how do they become more nimble using the small word agile, and also using more of an agile framework, and how do business architecture practices fit into that? How do they enable that? So one of the things that we've done is we partner with another firm here in town to actually bring a physical concept to town about what we're calling the extreme car build. It's something very unique and very different that's done. It's been done around the country. We're hosting it at our office in August. And this is the ability for a gentleman who's done this many, many times to actually bring 30 people together over the course of a day and actually physically build a car using components. So the concept of it is that what we're finding the interest in different companies is if you're trying to get business and technical people and product people and people from different disciplines together to do something unique that you can touch and feel. And at the end of the day, you actually result in a product that you can sit in and drive down the road. It's really an eye-opening experience for some people to say, because a lot of us work with products and services that you can't really touch and feel, and it's really kind of hard to kind of get your mind around how do I do things different when I can't touch and feel it. But if you build something, it's a very different kind of an experience. So we're just excited. We're going to host it. I've got some flyers up here. We're going to be doing a day in August, and it's going to be really fun. So kind of fun stuff. Thanks.
Speaking of, now I think that'd be a fantastic team building event myself. But, okay, well, we are done. Unless anyone has any questions or anything else you want to talk about, it's 6:02, and we really try to get you out of here when we say we will. So we are done until, this is May, so we're done until July. And that'll be Tri-Central hosted. We'll get information out to you folks on what's going to happen there. Okay, so stay in touch. Go out to the website. Let's do some discussion. The LinkedIn group, do some discussion, especially on this. This should be, I mean, I don't know, I find this very intriguing. So thank you, Jake, again, and thank you all for coming.